This is a double DVD review of two DVDs I recently purchased them last week actually. The first one you can probably see is this one, Born to Controversy, the Roddy Piper story. I picked this set up for $5 at Walmart, but it's worth so much more. And this is a great DVD set. It's got some great stuff on it, some great matches, some great Piper's Pit segments. A lot of us remember the old Piper's Pit. Remember the old coconut to the head of Jimmy Superfly Snuka? That happened on Piper's Pit. A lot of us who grew up watching pro wrestling remembered the feud, the absolute blood feud between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. As beloved a hero as Hulk Hogan was back in the mid-'80s, Roddy Piper was just as villainous, just as hated as Hogan was beloved. And that is one of the main impetuses of this DVD set. You have the war to settle the score between Hogan and Piper, which was shown on MTV. You had Piper. This was precipitated after Piper kicked Cyndi Lauper in the head and body slammed Dave Wolf. You have the tag team match from WrestleMania 1, where Hogan and Mr. T faced off against Piper and Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful. You have the dog collar match between Piper and Greg the Hammer Valentine from Starrcade 1983, the first Starrcade. You have a cage match between Piper and Ravishing Rick Rude. You have the Intercontinental Championship match where Piper won his only singles championship in WWE, that being the Intercontinental Championship from the Mountie. That was from the Royal Rumble 1992. Then you had the Intercontinental Championship match, WrestleMania 8, against Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret Hart beat him for the championship that night. You got the Hollywood Backlot Brawl between he and Goldust from WrestleMania 12, 1996. You've also got 20 years of Piper's Pit. There are several Piper's Pit segments on Disc 3. Disc 1 just kind of goes over his history, how he got started in the business. He got started at the age of 15. He was fighting in the streets. And then he eventually got to the Pacific Northwest, got to Portland. He was born in Saskatoon, Canada, to Scottish parents of Scottish descent. So Roddy Piper is actually Scottish. But he wrestled in the Portland area for Don Owen and his Portland wrestling organization there. And there's a few early matches with he against such notables as Playboy Buddy Rose and also Rip Oliver and Buddy Rose. He was teamed with a guy named Mike Popovich. And also you had a Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship match against Jack Briscoe of course the legendary Briscoe brothers. You've also got a match with him against Bad News Brown, a rather infamous match where Piper actually painted half his body black. He actually painted half his body black. He said it took him 3 weeks to get all that paint off. There was the hair versus hair match against adorable Adrian Adonis from WrestleMania 3, 1987. Which it was supposed to be Piper's retirement match, but it turned out that turned out not to be the case. He did not retire after that match. You also have his friendship with Cowboy Bob Ace Orton. Of course, we all remember Ace was his bodyguard. And then there was even a match between them when Piper turned face. Orton stayed heel. He was actually managed by Jimmy Hart for a time. And they had a match on Saturday Night's Main Event back then. But there's just all kinds of great stuff on this disc. There's 20 years of Piper's Pit. I mean, there's including, yes, the infamous incident with the coconut and Jimmy Superfly Snuka. He had guests such as Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Junkyard Dog, Paul Orndorff, Bruno Sammartino, Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, Harley Race, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Brother Love, and Morton Downey Jr. That was at WrestleMania 5, where Morton Downey Jr. decided it would be a fun thing to blow smoke in Piper's face, and Piper took a fire extinguisher and extinguished the flame of Mr. Downey. And then there are some later Piper's Pits from the 2000s, from SmackDown, with Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Mr. America, who was, of course, Hulk Hogan under a mask, Eddie Guerrero, and Tajiri. I love Tajiri. He's a trip. He and Eddie Guerrero were the tag team champions at that time. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Carlito from WrestleMania 21. Piper's Pit with Shawn Michaels, HBK. One with Mick Foley, Randy, and Cowboy Bob Orton, and the Great Khali. So those are just some of the Piper's Pits. I mean, a couple of great lines that Piper said during his Piper's Pits. One of them was referring to Andre the Giant: "Never throw rocks at a guy who's got a machine gun." And then after he bashed Jimmy Superfly Snuka in the head with a coconut, he says, "Just when they think they got the answers, I changed the questions." No, I think that was when he was kind of teasing this Frank Williams guy. Anyway, the only thing that's missing from this DVD set that I wish they would have put on here is the induction ceremony to the WWE Hall of Fame. I wish they put that on here. Other than that, great DVD set. I would say a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a great one. And then you have this one. The Big Show, A Giant's World. The first DVD devoted to the world's largest athlete. And this is a really good DVD set also. Those of us who have followed the Big Show's career when he was in WCW as the Giant. He was a 2-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He defeated Hulk Hogan in his first match in WCW. Defeated him at Halloween Havoc 1995, and then he had a match on Nitro against Ric Flair and defeated Ric Flair for the WCW Championship. I mean, we're talking the legendary Ric Flair. I mean, basically, the Big Show the Giant was a rookie at that time. And then you got him turning back the challenges of Sting and Lex Luger on back-to-back pay-per-views, that being Slamboree 96 and the Great American Bash 96. He had a match against Stone Cold Steve Austin on Raw. Triple threat match where he actually won his first WWE Championship against The Rock and Triple H. Then there was a match between him and Brock Lesnar from Survivor Series 2002. I wish that they had shown the match where he and Brock Lesnar broke the ring after Brock Lesnar suplexed the Big Show off the top rope. There was the no disqualification match between Big Show and Floyd Money Mayweather from WrestleMania 24, which was just a few years ago. And also, he had a couple of matches with Kurt Angle on this disc. One took place after he'd had his head shaved by Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle had tranquilized the Big Show on an episode of SmackDown and then shaved his head. Shaved him completely bald. And in the commentator's words, the Big Show was raped of his dignity. So he got back at Mr. Angle and defeated him in a singles match. There was a U.S. Championship match between he and Eddie Guerrero, which he wins. He beat Eddie Guerrero. Match between he and Triple H from New Year's Revolution 2006, which Triple H won. There's a few tag team championship matches where he and Kane teamed up against Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch and defeated them. That was at Taboo Tuesday 2005. There's also a match with he and Chris Jericho. They were collectively known as Jeri-Show, where they faced off with who was it? Batista and Rey Mysterio, and they retained the championships. Then there was a match on Raw where D-Generation X, Shawn Michaels and Triple H defended the unified WWE Tag Team Championships against Big Show and Miz, collectively known as Show Miz, and also against the Straight Edge Society, CM Punk and I think Luke Gallows was his partner. And Show Miz won the championships. There's also a match, the very last match on the third disc on here is a match with Big Show taking on three people, taking on CM Punk, Luke Gallows, and Joseph Mercury. And he defeated them. It was a 3-on-1 handicap match at SummerSlam 2010. There's also, let's see, there was an ECW championship match against Rob Van Dam, which Big Show won. He won the ECW championship. There was also a match where he defeated Sabu to retain the ECW championship. And then there was a moment, it was a lumberjack match between Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero on SmackDown. And the Big Show wasn't scheduled to come back for 2 weeks, but he came back 2 weeks early and just, there were 20 guys out there. There were like 18 lumberjacks all around the ring and the two wrestlers in the ring. And the Big Show just completely demolished every single guy out there. I mean, it was amazing. That moment is on this set. It's on this DVD set. The moment where he just completely demolishes 20 guys. But yeah, this is a great DVD set also. I would say this is about a 4.5 out of 5 stars also. It's really entertaining. You get some insight into his early life. He's originally from Aiken, South Carolina. So and he was a big guy, a big kid, literally. He just kept growing and growing and growing. Eventually, now he has acromegaly, which is the same condition that Andre the Giant had, which killed Andre. Well, he had the pituitary gland that was in his brain. He had it removed back in the 90s. The Big Show did. So he's not going to die an early death like Andre did. But yeah, this is a really great DVD. He is this generation's Andre the Giant, I think. And yeah, the Big Show. It's a great. I do recommend this DVD set. I recommend both DVD sets. I recommend you get both of them. Really good stuff.